Darren Till, the always brash Scouser who once promised to run roughshod over the welterweight landscape, is lacing up 8-ounce gloves for a boxing detour at Misfits 21 against fellow former UFC brawler Darren Stewart. And while the casual crowd may write the matchup off as a novelty, anyone who followed Till's winding journey from sleeping on a São Paulo gym floor after a stabbing incident left him stranded in Brazil to main event billing opposite Tyron Woodley for UFC Gold knows the man fights with a pride that never sleeps, even when his bank account does. During fight week scrums, he chuckles about overtraining like a psycho, admitting Tom Aspinall once dragged him out of the gym at 2 a.m. Yet he still reels off receipts proving pure strikers rarely outlanded him, pointing to Robert Whittaker's tactical chess match, Stephen Thompson's measured karate, Kelvin Gastelum's southpaw boxing clinic, and even the chaotic firefight with Dricus du Plessis, where his real undoing was a last-ditch rear-naked choke, not an exchange of hands. The boxing experiment is partly to test a surgically repaired knee, partly to remind the UFC matchmakers that the scariest version of the gorilla appears when he's forced to throw without fearing the takedown, and partly to market the entrepreneur he's become. After all, his own supplement brand recently plastered the octagon canvas, and Till jokes that board meetings bore him compared to head kicks echoing through an arena. 4,000 miles west, welterweight wrecking ball Gilbert Durino Burns is fielding questions on UFC Vegas 106 Media Row and, when pressed to name the most overrated 170-pounder, flash fires the words Colby Covington with zero hesitation, positioning Covington as a hype balloon nobody has punctured because he prefers microphones to matchups. Burns, a 3-time BJJ world champion whose black belt resume includes submitting Kron Gracie in a GI long before Kron flirted with MMA, shrugs at critics claiming he's overlooking undefeated Ecuadorian prospect Michael Morales, yet he's adamant that Morales has never felt the suffocating top pressure or shotgun blast right hand of a compact fireplug who once dropped Khamzat Chimaev in a 3-round war that rewired everyone's impression of both men. Morales, for his part, treats the barbs like free cardio. Raised by a coach dad and a judo black belt mom in Loja's high-altitude mountains, he was suplexing grown men in local circuits long before he celebrated a 21st birthday. And he says carrying the Ecuadorian flag onto the UFC canvas is a legacy his future grandkids will hear about no matter what happens to the zero on his record. He even brushes off the target on his back the way amateurs shrug off glove tape. Pressure just means more eyes. He smiles, promising his cross-cage stare will be the calm before a storm of teep kicks and laser-straight jabs designed to test Burns' 37-year-old reflexes. Hype doesn't stop there, because odds makers lighting up Vegas Strip billboards have positioned middleweight title holder Dricus du Plessis as a plus 160 underdog against the feral hurricane that is Khamzat Chimaev.
Since I made the Achilles quote of making pacts, I said there are no pacts between lions and men. This is another one from Achilles. And since he's standing across the octagon, is there no one else?
For UFC 319, a number analyst turned Hall of Famer Michael Bisping calls borderline lunacy when you consider du Plessis has choked, clubbed, and volume punched his way to 12 finishes in his last 14 appearances, owns South African national wrestling titles, flaunts a black belt under world-class grappler Morn Visser, and, crucially, has already proven he can fight 5 high-octane rounds without leaking energy like a punctured radiator. Chimaev, the Chechen-Swedish juggernaut who tosses opponents onto the mat as if testing furniture for durability, counters the narrative by reminding folks he's absorbed just 2 significant strikes across 4 of his 12 pro wins, and that his last outing at middleweight ended in a merciless mauling of Gerald Meerschaert in 17 seconds. Yet whispers persist that if the 1-round wrecking ball fails to detonate in the early minutes, the recoil might drain him faster than the capacity crowd drains their beers. In the bantamweight realm,
Man, the guy's big bullshit, this guy, man. I don't know what he's saying. He's not wrestling for the points, man. Here, we don't play wrestling. He's fighting, man. I don't care, somebody takes me down. I don't think so, this guy.
Marlon Chito Vera, the proud Ecuadorian who once wept on camera after earning his UFC contract on The Ultimate Fighter Latin America, grimaces through an Instagram clip announcing the first injury withdrawal of his 24-fight octagon tenure, apologizing to ticket holders in Newark who hoped to see him scrap with Mario Bautista at UFC 316, but pledging to redirect the same blue-collar tenacity that once carried him from Tijuana's unknown gyms to knockout wins over legendary legends like Frankie Edgar into a rehab plan that'll weld his bones stronger than before. Cheeto's absence again jams the bantamweight ladder where champion Sean O'Malley, whom Vera upset with a calf kick and ground and pound back in 2020, looks for fresh challengers, so fans buzz about an eventual rematch that feels inevitable once Vera's body catches up with his iron-willed mind. As fight weeks blur, Scotland's Paul Beardew Craig sheds the dehydrated shell of a middleweight experiment and bulks back into 205-pound territory, hiring a sports science team to pack functional muscle onto his 6'3" frame without sacrificing the rubber-limbed guard that has made him a nightmare for anyone reckless enough to enter his closed guard. Craig still owns the only UFC victory over current champ.
Да, я думаю, следующий Перейра, если даже не будет следующим, я его загоню в угол, чтобы у него выхода не было другого.
Yes, I think it's going to be Alex Pereira. That's the next fight. But if it's not, I will do whatever to corner him that he has no...
Magomed Ankalaev, a literal last-second triangle choke that flipped the Dagestani's lights off at 4:59 of round 3. And he plans to remind matchmakers of that fact by strangling Rodolfo Bellato so decisively, the highlight reel forces a commentator to compare it to old-school Pride FC carnage. Legacy talk shifts up to lightweight, where former bantamweight king Aljamain Sterling pulls data like a courtroom attorney to argue Islam Makhachev has already nudged past Khabib Nurmagomedov, pointing to Islam's 14-fight UFC tenure, his willingness to defend his belt twice in 7 months, and his dethroning of pound-for-pound darling Alexander Volkanovski on short notice, sparking an online schism between Dagestan loyalists and those who believe activity plus difficulty equals greatness. Sterling tempers the take by conceding Khabib's aura of invincibility still looms like an unmoved mountain, but he insists Islam's wins over Volk, Charles Oliveira, and Dustin Poirier reflect a more diverse championship resume than Khabib's shorter, albeit flawless, reign. Meanwhile, top contender Arman Tsarukyan, fresh off a narrow but career-defining split decision over Oliveira, fields non-stop questions about fighting Paddy Pimblett, the Liverpool showman whose personality and post-fight pizza parties sometimes eclipse the technical gaps in his still-developing game. Tsarukyan says, waiting until October for Paddy's ankle to heal makes no strategic sense when a title shot might materialize sooner. Yet, former champ TJ Dillashaw counters on a podcast that smashing Paddy under the bright lights of Etihad Arena could catapult Arman's mainstream Q rating into another stratosphere, a point Arman begrudgingly admits, but still weighs against the risk of losing momentum if matchmaking politics stall.
And he did that on purpose, or was that?
I don't know what I mean. As I say, I like Mike, he's a nice fella. He's very respectful and nice outside the cage, but when he gets in it, he hit me with about 4 punches in the back of the head in the first round. Know what I mean? Nothing even got said to him. But you never know, he might have kicking on.
Paddy himself pours gasoline on the rumor by declaring to TNT Sports that he wants Justin Gaethje in Abu Dhabi, reasoning that Gaethje's reputation for bonus-collecting dogfights guarantees maximum eyeballs and that beating such a proven savage leapfrogs him straight into title contention, though analysts are quick to note Gaethje's calf kicks have chewed through iron-jawed veterans like Tony Ferguson and Dustin Poirier, raising questions about whether Paddy's wide stance can survive more than a couple of those detonations without compromising the footwork he uses to sling overhands. Khamzat Chimaev reappears with his signature half-grin to explain why former teammate Caio Baralho volunteered to replace Duplessis during injury whispers, "Fight me once, make $1 million. Fight 5 times, maybe make the same," he says, pulling back the promotional curtain to expose how prize fighting's raw math of damage to dollars often controls career decisions more than official rankings. He even praises Baralho's grappling, but promises that old gym camaraderie would vanish the second the cage door shuts, replaced by the feral mindset that made Khamzat run across the octagon and scoop Li Jingliang airborne like a child's doll. Yet, the loudest ripple across MMA Twitter comes from Conor McGregor, who tags Dana White and TKO Group with a cryptic call to ring that big butt nurse and demands the UFC get this show started, an apparent reference to stalled negotiations for his long-teased comeback after snapping his tibia against Dustin Poirier in July 2021 and filming a season of The Ultimate Fighter opposite Michael Chandler that ended with no fight date. White, unfazed, tells reporters McGregor isn't fighting anytime soon and admits they haven't spoken in weeks, effectively tossing a bucket of ice water on every clickbait headline predicting a summer megafight, while simultaneously confirming that heavyweight kingpin...
The press conference, going through the whole shebang with him, I'd rather not do. Pereira on the other side, respectful, cool, barely says much. It's like, I'll do business with you. I would.
John Bones Jones, sidelined by a torn pec, is 100% fighting in 2025, though he offers no specifics on whether it will be Stipe Miocic, Tom Aspinall, or someone else storming for the throne. The news cycle spins so relentlessly that even the undercard gems sparkle, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu prodigy Rodolfo Bellato insisting he'll test Paul Craig's guard with top pressure honed at Nova União, or Ukrainian striker Ihor Potieria promising a show-stealing head kick on the prelims. And every storyline feels like a mini-series binge-watched in real time. Darren Till pacing backstage, imagining what a clean straight left could do for his boxing credibility. Gilbert Burns drilling single-leg entries, while his coaches remind him Morales' 6'3" frame offers knee sniper counters. Duplessis sharpening altitude camp cardio in Pretoria, while Khamzat tosses wrestling dummies across Sweden's All-Stars training center. Chito Vera meditating through cold plunge recovery sessions while visualizing O'Malley's flashy footwork. Aljamain Sterling screenshotting topology stats to strengthen his Islam over Khabib thesis. Arman Tsarukyan replaying Gaethje's flying knee KO of Dustin Poirier as a study in danger. Paddy Pimblett secretly slimming between sponsorship dinners to prove scale fails are behind him. Khamzat laughing with Chechen friends about million-dollar beatdowns. And McGregor perhaps polishing proper 12 bottles for another Twitter rant, while John Jones shadowboxes in an Albuquerque garage, piecing together the mechanics of a comeback that could either cement or complicate his combustible legacy. And as YouTube viewers lean toward their screens, algorithmic watch time ticking upward, they're reminded that mixed martial arts thrives on cliffhangers. A boxer turning businessman who still chases octagon ghosts, a jiu-jitsu ace flirting with gatekeeper status, a champion underdogged against a so-called boogeyman, a wounded contender plotting revenge, up-and-comers swinging like their life savings depend on it, a legacy debate pitting cousin against brother in the House of Dagestan, a cagey matchmaker's chessboard where hype can outweigh rank, and a notorious showman teasing a comeback that may or may not materialize. Every fact, rumor, and half-quote folds into the same addictive narrative stew, and fans, like moths to an eternal flame, keep clicking, keep commenting, keep refreshing, hungry for the next pulse-quickening wrinkle in the world's most unpredictable sport.